The rain hammered against the cracked window of the diner like 1,000 angry fists, each drop a reminder that the world outside was cold, indifferent, and utterly merciless. Inside, beneath the flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying wasps, Marcus Chen sat alone in a corner booth, his weathered hands wrapped around a coffee cup that had gone cold an hour ago. He stared at the amber liquid as if it held answers to questions he was too afraid to ask. The truth was he had $17 left to his name, nowhere to sleep tonight, and a daughter 3,000 miles away who didn't return his calls anymore. At 62 years old, Marcus had learned that rock bottom wasn't a place you hit once. It was a trap door that kept opening beneath you, revealing darker depths you never knew existed. The bell above the door chimed, but Marcus didn't look up. He'd stopped looking up months ago, stopped making eye contact, stopped hoping that anyone might see him as anything other than another forgotten shadow in America's margins. That's why he almost missed her when she slid into the booth across from him, uninvited and impossibly present. She was young, maybe 30, with dark curls plastered to her forehead from the rain and eyes that held a peculiar mixture of exhaustion and determination. She wore scrubs, green ones, the kind nurses wore, and she smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender. "You're Marcus Chen," she said, and it wasn't a question. Her voice carried the flat, nasal accent of the Midwest. "Minnesota, maybe, or Wisconsin. I've been looking for you." Marcus felt his chest tighten. When strangers knew your name, it usually meant trouble. Debt collectors, social workers, police officers with questions about places you'd been or things you'd allegedly done. He'd learned to make himself small in these moments, to apologize preemptively for existing. "I think you have me confused with someone else," he mumbled, gathering his jacket, preparing to flee into the storm that suddenly seemed preferable to whatever this was. "Your daughter's name is Sarah," the woman continued, her words stopping him cold. "She's 28, lives in Portland, works in marketing, has a golden retriever named Biscuit." The woman leaned forward, and Marcus saw tears gathering in the corners of her eyes. "And she talks about you all the time." The world tilted. Marcus gripped the edge of the table, certain he was hallucinating. That hunger and desperation had finally broken something fundamental in his brain. "Sarah doesn't... We haven't spoken in..." 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days, the woman said softly. "I know because she's my best friend, and I've watched her cry about it for exactly that long. I'm Amy, by the way. Amy Patterson." She extended her hand across the table, and after a moment of paralyzed confusion, Marcus shook it. "I don't understand," Marcus whispered. "What are you doing here?" "How did you find me?" Amy pulled out her phone, swiped through several screens, then turned it toward him. There was Sarah, his beautiful girl, laughing in a photo taken at some restaurant, her arm around this woman sitting across from him now. She hired a private investigator 6 months ago. Cost her most of her savings. When she found out you were here, in Chicago living... Amy paused, choosing her words carefully. Going through hard times, she wanted to come herself. But she was scared. Scared you wouldn't want to see her. Scared of what she'd say. Scared of making things worse. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. Something that had calcified over years of shame and distance. She was scared? I'm the one who messed everything up. I lost my job, lost the house, couldn't even afford to visit for her college graduation. What kind of father? The kind who worked 3 jobs to put her through high school, Amy interrupted, her voice fierce now. The kind who sat up with her when she had nightmares. The kind who taught her that people are more important than things. She told me all of it, Marcus. Every story, every sacrifice. She doesn't blame you for struggling. She blames herself for not being there when things got hard. The words hung in the air between them, reshaping everything Marcus thought he knew about the past 2 years. He'd been so consumed by his own shame, so certain that his failures had made him unworthy of his daughter's love, that he'd never considered she might be carrying her own burden of guilt. "So why didn't she come?" Marcus asked, and he hated how small his voice sounded, how much hope leaked through despite his best efforts to contain it. Amy's expression shifted, and for the first time, Marcus saw past her determination to the bone-deep weariness beneath. "Because I'm dying," she said simply, as if commenting on the weather. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 3 months, Maybe 4 if I'm lucky and the new treatment works, which it probably won't. Sarah wanted to be here, but I made her stay in Portland. There's a work presentation that could change her career. I told her I'd come check on you, take some photos, report back. I told her I needed one last adventure before. She gestured vaguely at herself. Marcus felt like he'd been punched. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. Don't be sorry. Be something else. Amy reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope, thick with what looked like papers and photographs. Sarah wrote you a letter. Actually, she wrote you about 30 letters over the past 2 years and never sent any of them. These are all of them. She wants you to read them, but more than that, she wants you to come home. Not the old house, that's gone. Home to Portland. She has a spare room. She has a job lead for you through her company. Building maintenance, decent pay. She has a life she wants to share with you. Marcus took the envelope with trembling hands. Why would she? After everything I put her through. Because she loves you, you stubborn man, Amy said. And suddenly she was crying, tears streaming down her face without restraint. Because life is so goddamn short, and the people who love us are so goddamn rare. And wasting time on pride or shame or fear is the stupidest thing we can possibly do. I'm 31 years old. I had plans. I was going to travel, fall in love again, maybe have kids. All of it just gone. Poof. And you know what I learned? Nothing matters except the people who see you. Really see you and love you anyway. She reached across the table and grabbed both of his hands. Her grip surprisingly strong. Your daughter sees you, Marcus. All of you. The good parts and the struggling parts and everything in between. And she loves you. So please, for the love of God and everything that matters in this broken, beautiful world, let her. The fluorescent lights continued their buzzing overhead. The rain continued its assault on the windows. But something had shifted in the universe. Some fundamental truth had reasserted itself through the fog of Marcus's despair. He wasn't alone. He had never been alone. He'd just been too afraid to reach out, too convinced of his own unworthiness, to accept the love that had been waiting for him all along. There's a bus to Portland that leaves tomorrow at 6 a.m., Amy continued, her voice steadier now. I've got the ticket right here. It's yours if you want it. No pressure, no judgment if you're not ready. But Marcus, I'm begging you as someone who's running out of tomorrows, don't wait. Don't waste this. The things we regret most aren't the risks we take. They're the chances we were too scared to grab. Marcus looked down at the envelope in his hands, then up at this extraordinary woman who had traveled across the country while dying to deliver a message of hope to a broken stranger. He thought about Sarah, about the little girl who used to fall asleep on his shoulder during long drives, about the young woman who apparently still remembered him as something other than his worst moments. He thought about all the tomorrows he'd assumed he didn't deserve, all the second chances he'd been too proud or too scared to believe in. Okay, he whispered, and then louder. Okay, yes, I'll go. I'll go home. Amy's smile could have lit up the entire diner. She stood gathering her bag, preparing to leave. But Marcus stood too, and before he could think better of it, he wrapped his arms around this stranger who had become his savior. She hugged him back fiercely, and he felt her shaking with sobs or laughter, or maybe both. Thank you, he said into her shoulder. Thank you for seeing me, for coming here, for believing I was worth the trip. Everyone's worth the trip, Marcus, Amy said, pulling back and wiping her eyes. That's the secret nobody tells you. We're all worth saving. We're all worth fighting for. She left then, disappearing into the rain like an angel who had completed her mission. Marcus stood alone in the diner, clutching an envelope full of his daughter's words and a bus ticket that represented a future he'd stopped, believing was possible. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside, in the quiet chambers of Marcus Chen's battered heart, something new was beginning to grow. Tomorrow, he would board a bus heading west. Tomorrow, he would begin the journey back to his daughter, back to himself, back to the possibility of redemption and reconnection. But tonight, he sat in that corner booth and read every letter Sarah had written. And he cried for all the wasted time, and he laughed at the memories she'd preserved. And he felt, for the first time in years, something dangerous and fragile and absolutely vital. He felt hope.